This happened about a week ago. I'm 35 and spend most of my time chasing down strange stories and old maps. I never thought I'd find something like Elder's Hollow. I drove in and my stomach twisted. It was quiet, too quiet. I could barely shake the feeling that I wasn't welcome. The sign read, "Welcome to Elder's Hollow," but it felt like a warning. I parked next to the sign and stepped out. The air felt heavy. I shivered. Leaves rustled, but no birds sang. I started walking the streets. The homes were crumbling, their roofs sagging. Old toys lay in yards, forgotten. I found a bicycle tipped over, the tires still. I imagined laughter faded into the past. Turning a corner, I stumbled into the town square. In the center was a statue covered in moss and grime. I couldn't tell who it used to be. It felt wrong. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled. I was about to leave when I spotted a newspaper near the statue. It was yellowed and cracked. The headline read, "Residents mysteriously vanish." My heart raced. I had to know more. As night crept in, everything changed. Odd noises echoed through the empty buildings. I thought I heard footsteps. I hurried back to my car. The noises seemed to follow me. I looked back but saw nothing. Driving deeper into the town, I noticed odd symbols carved into the trees. They set my nerves on edge. I felt like I was in a horror film. I parked by an old house, the wooden boards rotting. The windows felt like they were watching me. I stepped out and felt a pull to explore more. Suddenly, lights flickered in the windows of a nearby house. I squinted, trying to see inside. A figure? I couldn't tell. My breathing quickened and I took a step back. Then, soft whispers drifted to me. They called my name. Were they warning me? Cold sweat gathered on my forehead. I turned to leave when I saw a figure at the edge of the square. Just a dark shape in the twilight. I blinked. It seemed to dissolve into the shadows. I felt dread claw at me. Something terrible lived in this town, waiting. My heart raced as I ran back to my car. I had to escape Elder's Hollow. Driving away, I tried to calm my frantic thoughts. What happened to the town? What became of its people? I couldn't shake the feeling that they were still there. In the air, in the woods. What if they vanished not just from sight, but from memory? Now I sit here, retelling this story, unable to shake the dread of what lurked in Elder's Hollow. I wonder if the whispers will ever stop. I can still hear them calling me back. What truly happened there? I couldn't sleep that night. The whispers haunted me, creeping under my skin. I tossed and turned, fighting a growing urge to return to Elder's Hollow. I needed answers, but a part of me wondered if I was putting myself in danger. Morning broke, and I gave in to the pull. I grabbed my camera and notepad, determined to document everything. Driving back, I felt the weight of the town closing in around me. The air felt thicker than before, as if Elder's Hollow was alive, waiting. This time, I parked in the square. The statue's grim face seemed to watch me closely. I took a deep breath. The whispers were louder here, layered with urgency. "Come closer," they seemed to say. My pulse quickened, but I fought the terror. I needed to face whatever was hiding in this town. I approached the newspaper I had found earlier. Maybe I could find more artifacts, something that could explain the disappearances. Walking down the street, the sense of being watched intensified. I noticed a house that had remained mostly unchanged. Its curtains fluttered like ghostly hands. I felt drawn to it. I hesitated, then stepped onto the porch. The door hung slightly ajar. Peering inside, I saw the remnants of a past life. Dust-covered furniture and old family pictures lined the walls. I entered cautiously. My breath echoed in the silence.
As I explored the living room, a chill wrapped around me. That's when I saw it. A dusty album on the coffee table. I opened it slowly, my hands trembling. Faces stared back at me, trapped in smiles. But something felt wrong. Each picture was dated, but the years appeared to jump. One picture showed a family gathered for a picnic, dated 1975, while the next was from 1985, except the same people were in it, without aging a day. Panic rose within me. I flipped through the pages. There were fewer photos after 1985, until it abruptly ended. I slammed the album shut, heart racing. What happened to them? Did they vanish like the newspaper reported? Then I heard it, a low creaking from upstairs. My body reacted before my mind did. I moved toward the stairs, convinced I needed to know. Each step felt heavier than the last. Shadows danced along the walls, flickering in and out of view. When I reached the top, a door at the end of the hallway was slightly open. Light crept from inside, illuminating dust floating in the air. As I approached, whispers flared up, almost chanting my name. I pushed the door open, heart hammering against my ribs. What I saw inside froze me in place. A circular symbol was drawn on the floor, surrounded by old candles. In the center lay a figure, cloaked in darkness. I couldn't discern who or what it was. The whispers grew louder, but I couldn't make out words. I backed away, realizing I was not alone. Suddenly, the door slammed behind me, and the room went dark. I was trapped in Elder's Hollow, and whatever vanished here was coming for me. I stumbled backward, heart racing. The darkness pressed in all around me, thick and suffocating. Panic clawed at my throat as I fumbled for the door, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped inside the room with the shadowy figure. The whispers reached a deafening crescendo. I couldn't tell if they were coming from the entity in the center or if they seeped through the very walls around me. "Leave," they hissed, the voices entwined with chilling urgency.
I wanted to comply, but my legs felt frozen. I searched the room for anything that could help. The candles flickered erratically, casting warped shadows against the walls. It was then that I noticed a small mirror hanging crookedly near the door. I approached it cautiously, hoping to catch a glimpse of whatever stood in the center. As I peered into the glass, my breath caught. A face stared back at me, pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes. It couldn't be mine. I looked different, older. I recoiled, feeling bile rise in my throat. Just then, I heard movements from the figure. It shifted slightly, its hood falling back to reveal a face I recognized from the photographs in the album. The memory hit me hard, one of the smiling faces from 1985. This person looked as if they had been pulled straight from that snapshot. I gasped, realizing they hadn't aged a day since then. "What do you want?" I managed to whisper, but the figure only remained silent, its expression unreadable. Then, unexpectedly, a flash of light illuminated the room. It startled me, and I turned sharply to see the door swinging open. A man stood there, silhouetted against the light. He looked familiar, but my mind struggled to place him. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice grave. "You must leave now." "Who are you?" I stammered, but before he could answer, the whispers shifted, turning sharp and angry. "Leave with her!" they cried, the urgency swirling around me like a storm. The figures in the photographs, all of them, seemed to come alive in the back of my mind. "I can't just leave. What happened to you?" I shouted. I needed to know what was going on. The man stepped closer, his face revealing deep lines of worry. "You're in danger.
"They don't like outsiders. They never did," he warned. "Who are they? What is this?" I gestured at the shadowy figure now rising to its feet. It stood taller, more defined. Fear propelled me back against the wall as I realized the candle flames flickering between us were growing brighter, as if they were feeding off my terror. Without warning, the figure lunged. I barely dodged, scrambling away from both the man and the entity. The shadows swallowed the room, and I felt my breath become shallow. I dashed past the man, bolting for the door. I had to get out. "Trust me," he shouted, but my heart raced with adrenaline as I flung myself into the hallway. Then everything went dark again, a heavy shadow suffocating what little light remained. I stumbled forward but was met with nothingness. I was lost in a black void. All I could hear were the whispers now, raw and chaotic, a multitude of voices. "You're one of us." I didn't want to be part of whatever had happened in Elder's Hollow, but I didn't know if I could escape. I felt a cold breeze wrap around me as the whispers began to fade. I was still stumbling through the darkness, but I focused on moving forward. Suddenly, I collided with something solid, a wall. I pressed my palm against it, letting the rough texture anchor me as I caught my breath. Think, I muttered to myself. I forced my mind to clear through the panic. I needed to find a way out. I reached out, sliding my hands along the wall until I felt the outline of a door. Relief rushed through me. I turned the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I pushed harder, the door creaking, but it remained stubbornly closed. Frustrated, I banged my fist against it. "Come on!" That's when a flicker of light broke through the void. I squinted, the glow strong enough to cast shifting shadows around me. Shapes appeared to emerge from the edges of the darkness, twisting and writhing, growing sharper and clearer. I caught glimpses of familiar faces, those from the album, but their expressions were morphed into masks of sorrow and desperation. "Help us!" they pleaded in unison, their voices weaving through the air with haunting familiarity. "You know us!" I gasped, my heart clenching at the sight. My hands trembled. "I don't know you. I don't know what's happening." But there was no response from the shadows, only the growing chorus of their distorted cries. I shut my eyes, trying to block it out. I couldn't bear to face them. Then I remembered the man from before. His warning echoed in my mind. I needed to escape. I couldn't stay here. With renewed determination, I threw my weight against the door one last time. This time, it opened. I stumbled through, landing hard on a wooden floor. My senses were assaulted by the smell of dampness and decay. I lifted my head, the dim light revealing a large, abandoned living room that held remnants of life. Dust-covered furniture, faded photographs, and peeling wallpaper. A chill ran down my spine as I looked around. Why did it feel like I had stepped into a forgotten memory? As I stood, trying to gather my thoughts, I heard movement behind me. My heart dropped. I turned slowly, fearing what I might find. The man from before emerged through the shadows, his face stern yet concerned. "You shouldn't have come here." His voice was steady, a contrast to my racing heartbeat. "You're deeper in than I thought. They won't let you leave easily." "Who are you? Please tell me," I begged, my voice shaky. "What do they want from me?" "The truth," he replied, looking gravely serious. "You hold the key to unraveling what happened here, but they will do everything to keep you from it." I frowned, my mind reeling. What could that mean? I didn't even know where here was, let alone what they wanted from me. But before I could press him for more answers, a loud creak echoed from the hallway behind us, making my throat tighten with fear. "Someone's coming," I whispered urgently, adrenaline surging again. We needed to hide, and fast. The man's gaze turned to the door, his expression shifting from concern to grim acceptance. "We have to find the basement. It's the only place we'll be safe." Before I could respond, he grabbed my wrist and led me down a narrow hallway.
I glanced back, hearing the whispers swell once more. They called my name, and I could feel their presence closing in. "What if they find us?" I asked, the knot in my stomach tightening. "This is just the beginning," he said with a determination that made me shiver. "Trust me and hold on tight." Then we turned a corner, and I saw it, a staircase leading down into darkness. My heart raced. I didn't know what awaited us below, but I had no choice but to follow him into the unknown. I hesitated at the top of the stairs, the darkness below swallowing the faint light we had come from. The man's grip on my wrist tightened, urging me forward. "We have to go, now." His eyes darted behind us, scanning for threats. With a deep breath, I stepped onto the first step. The wood creaked beneath my weight, echoing in the silent air. I followed him down, my heart pounding against my ribcage. The deeper we went, the colder it became, as if the walls were absorbing warmth and leaving nothing but dread in their place. As we reached the bottom, the dim light unveiled a small room filled with old boxes and dusty furniture. My eyes scanned the space, trying to process what I saw. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, their meanings completely foreign to me. Faded photographs lay scattered on the floor, faces looking out at me with hollow eyes. "What is this place?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "It used to be a gathering place, before everything changed," he replied, his tone somber. "You need to understand, whatever happened, it started here." I took a step closer to one of the walls. The symbols seemed to pulse, hiding secrets locked away. I felt an urge to touch them, to decipher whatever message they held. But before I could reach out, a loud bang echoed from the staircase above us. My stomach dropped. The man turned sharply, his eyes wide with alarm. "They found us!" I glanced back at the staircase, panic flooding through me. The whispers grew louder, swirling like a storm. "What are we going to do?" "Hide," he shouted, pointing to a dark corner of the room. Without hesitation, I darted behind a stack of boxes, my breath caught in my throat. I crouched low, heart racing as I tried to quiet the noise in my head. The man found a spot nearby, blending into the shadows with an unsettling grace. We could hear the footsteps growing closer, heavy and deliberate. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to focus on anything besides the fear tightening my chest. My thoughts spiraled, wondering who or what was coming down the staircase. Then the door creaked open. I held my breath, waiting for the moment when they would find us. The air felt thick with anticipation and dread. A figure stepped through the doorway, silhouetted against the feeble light outside. I could hear their ragged breaths, the way they lingered in the space.
"We know you're here," a voice called, deep and chilling. "There's no escape." The man beside me shifted slightly, his eyes locked on the intruder. I could sense his tension, and I wondered how we could possibly get out of this alive. My heart raced faster, the whispers seeming to entwine with the words of the figure now searching the room. Suddenly, the figure shouted, "Search everywhere!" I glanced at the man, fear pooling in my gut. What do we do? Then everything went dark. I gasped as the darkness closed in around me, a suffocating blanket that snuffed out the little light that had filled the room. My pulse thundered in my ears. It felt like the world had evaporated, leaving just me and the shadows that suddenly surrounded us. The man beside me was still, yet I could sense his fear. I wished for my instincts to kick in, to be brave, but instead I felt paralyzed. I strained to hear anything beyond the silence that enveloped us. The intruder's footsteps had stopped, and the air shifted, heavy with uncertainty. Then a brief flicker of light burst through the darkness. It was the stranger's flashlight beam slicing through the room, illuminating dust and discarded memories. My heart lurched. The figure seemed to glide with purpose, the light probing every corner, searching for us. "Over there!" the intruder shouted suddenly, and my chest seized up. I wanted to bolt, to run. "Stay quiet," the man whispered harshly, his tone firm. I nodded, even though I could hardly hear my own thoughts over the roaring in my ears. The flashlight beam danced closer to our hiding spot. I pressed my back against the boxes, trying to make myself as small as possible. The dark corner felt like a trap. I could feel my breath quicken, each exhale a betrayal, revealing our location to anyone who might be listening. A clatter erupted as the intruder knocked over one of the old furniture pieces. I couldn't help but flinch. "What's this?" they muttered. The man's fingers brushed against my leg, a signal to remain still. I felt the tension in his body. He was deciding his next move. I could see the muscles in his jaw tighten, his mind racing just like my own. Suddenly, without warning, the light shifted to a spot in the corner of the room where the faded photographs lay scattered. A gasp escaped my lips, and I quickly pressed my hand over my mouth. I had to stop making noise. "That's it," the intruder declared, kneeling to gather the photographs. "They're hiding something." I watched in horror as the person sifted through the pictures, their focused expression unsettling. What could those old photographs possibly reveal? My heart sank. An unexpected thought hit me. Those photographs might connect to the symbols on the walls, or even to whatever had taken place in this forsaken gathering place. And then, just as quickly, the flashlight beam darted back toward us. "I can feel you," the voice boomed, filled with a dark satisfaction. "You think you can hide from me?" "You're about to learn the truth." My skin crawled. The man turned to look at me, his expression a mix of urgency and warning. We had to move, or we would be trapped here forever. But where could we even go? Before I could voice my thoughts, the walls seemed to tremble. A sudden low rumble vibrated through the floor beneath us, shaking the remnants of the past. My heart raced again, and I could hardly believe what was happening. The man leaned closer, his voice barely a breath. "They're not the only ones looking for you." And then everything changed again. A loud crash came from above, and I knew that whatever had been hidden in the shadows was stirring. I wanted to scream, to cry, to fight, but all that escaped my lips was a choked gasp. That's when I saw it. A shape emerging from the darkness, something I couldn't comprehend. My mind screamed for me to flee, but it was too late. The figure crept closer, gliding through the shadows like a predatory ghost. My heart pounded wildly in my chest. There was no mistaking the threat it posed. It was tall and thin, with elongated limbs that seemed to stretch unnaturally. Its face, if you could call it that, was a blank canvas, a hollow void that made my skin prickle. "Run!" the man urged, breaking through my paralysis. I wasn't sure if I could, but something in his voice stirred a primal instinct. I wanted to scream, but I swallowed my fear and nodded. As we sprang into action, I felt the weight of the darkness pressing against me, almost as if it were trying to pull me back. I stumbled, but the man grabbed my wrist, steadying me. I could hear the intruder still rummaging through the photographs, completely unaware of the looming danger. "Through the door," he commanded, pointing to a small exit I had missed in the haze of panic. We sprinted toward it, helpless to silence the echoes of our footfalls as the floor creaked beneath us. I glanced over my shoulder, terrified the shape would shift and lunge forward, but my focus pulled back to the doorway ahead. The light from the flashlight continued to flutter, casting ominous shadows that danced along the walls. The door felt cold against my fingers as I pushed it open, and a gust of stale air rushed to greet us.
We stumbled out into a darkened hallway, bluntly raw with peeling paint and debris. The overwhelming fear began to morph into something sharper, adrenaline. "No one's supposed to be here," he whispered as we halted, leaning against a grimy wall. His breath came out fast, and I could feel the weight of his words. "They're searching for something." "What is it?" I asked, panting. My throat felt tight, and the question hung heavy in my mind. He hesitated. "There's something hidden in this town, something they don't want anyone to find." His eyes flickered with a mix of dread and determination. "We have to find it first." Before I could respond, the sound of boots echoed from the entrance we had just fled. The intruder was coming.
I wanted to bolt again, but something about his words gripped me. "Why is it so important?" I pressed, fear still dancing in my veins. "Because," he said, lowering his voice, "it could change everything." Just then, a loud crash reverberated through the hallway, sending a jolt down my spine. I turned to see a door swing open further down the corridor, revealing a faint beam of light. My heart skipped. "Go," he urged again, pushing me forward. Our feet moved almost automatically, the need to escape guiding us. As we raced toward the light, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Whatever truth lay hidden in this town, it was about to reveal itself, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what we would uncover. The next moment, the light abruptly flickered, plunging us into darkness once more. I felt my heart stop. A new presence crackled in the air, a heavy weight that made me shiver. Then I heard it, a voice, low and menacing, calling out my name. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat. The voice was familiar, yet twisted, as if it were a distant echo. "Why are you hiding? Your name?" it taunted, each syllable wrapping around me like a tightening noose. "Don't respond," the man hissed, urgency flooding his tone. He tugged at my arm, pulling me deeper into the shadowed corridor. His grip was firm, but my legs felt like lead. "What if it finds us?" I whispered, terrified of making a sound. He shook his head, his expression hardening. "We can't think of that right now. We need to find a place to hide." Just ahead, a doorway loomed ominously. I could barely make out a staircase spiraling upward in the dim light. My instinct screamed at me to turn back, but he pushed me forward once again. We climbed quickly, the wood creaking beneath our weight, and the air felt thick with tension. From above, the sound of muffled footsteps came closer. Whoever or whatever was hunting us was persistent. The man's hand left mine for a brief moment as he cautiously peered up through a dusty window. "I don't see anyone," he trailed off, his voice low and cautious. Then I heard it again, the taunting voice, now closer and sharper. "You can't run forever." Panic surged within me. I pulled my knees up to my chest as I crouched down, trying to merge with the wall. The man turned quickly, scanning our surroundings. "We have to keep moving," he said, his voice rushed. "If we stay still, they'll know where we are." "Know who?" I pressed, my fear mingling with frustration. I desperately wanted answers, yet all I received were cryptic words and an overwhelming sense of dread. Suddenly, the floor trembled beneath us, as if the house itself was afraid. Objects rattled and dust fluttered down from the ceiling. My heart raced. "What was that?" I gasped. "It's getting closer," he replied, his eyes wide with urgency. "We need to find that something before they do. The truth will explain everything." He reached for me, and I took his hand, feeling the cool sweat on his palm. We ascended the last few steps, and I could barely breathe as we stepped into the attic. Old boxes lay scattered, their contents spilling out into the darkened space. "Look for anything that seems out of place," he instructed, his gaze sweeping the area. I nodded, but all I felt was the weight of silence clinging to us. Then something caught my eye, a glint of metal peeking from behind a tattered tarp in the corner. My heart pounded again as I rushed toward it, ripping the fabric aside. That's when I saw it, a small, ornate box with strange symbols etched into its surface, pulsing faintly with a blue light. I reached out, a mix of excitement and fear churning in my stomach. As my fingers brushed against the cool surface, the sound of footsteps drew nearer. "Wait!" he shouted, but it was too late. The box clicked open, and an unsettling energy erupted, flooding the room with a blinding light. My vision blurred, and I lost my footing, stumbling backward. Everything shifted, and for a brief moment I felt my reality fracture. As darkness took me, all I could think was, "What have I unleashed?" I woke with a start, lying on a cold wooden floor. My heart raced as I blinked against the blinding light. Where was I? The attic? A low, ominous hum filled the air. The box! I scrambled to my feet, searching the space around me, but it was gone. "Where is it?" I gasped, panic creeping into my voice. My eyes darted around the attic, but the eerie silence mocked me. The man had disappeared too, leaving me alone in a room that felt wrong. The shadows seemed to deepen, swirling like smoke. I took a step back, only to hit something hard, a stack of boxes. I steadied myself and glanced in the corner, where the tattered tarp still lay, but the ornate box was nowhere to be found. Suddenly, a sound broke through the silence. It was muffled, like a voice echoing from a distance. I strained to hear it. "Help!" the voice cried, and my pulse quickened. It was close, not far from me at all. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaking. I stepped cautiously toward the source, heart hammering in my chest. The voice continued to call out, but it was weak, as if the speaker was fading. I reached a doorway at the back of the attic and pushed it open slowly. A narrow staircase led down into the darkness. The voice was stronger now, a desperate plea for help. With a deep breath, I descended the steps, feeling the damp wood underfoot. As I reached the bottom, the air thickened, wrapping around me like a vine. The voice cut off abruptly. "What happened?" I whispered, my throat dry. Then I saw movement, a figure huddled in the shadows. "There!" I pointed, fear and hope battling within me. But as I approached, the figure turned toward me, and I recoiled. It was a boy, maybe 15, with wide, fearful eyes. "You shouldn't have come here," he warned, trembling. "You opened the box, didn't you? It's too late." "What do you mean?" I asked, backing away as his desperation seeped into my bones. "What box?" "The one that makes the town disappear. You've unleashed it." His voice was filled with terror. I shook my head. "No, I didn't mean to. I just wanted answers." My thoughts raced. I remembered the man's words about the truth. What truth? Before the boy could respond, a low rumble echoed through the room. The walls shuddered, and the shadows crawled closer, thickening with each pulse. "Run!" he shouted, surging past me. "It's coming!" I didn't think. I turned and sprinted back toward the stairs. My heart pounded in my chest as the walls seemed to close in, the darkness clawing at my heels. As I reached the attic, I heard the boy scream, and I turned just in time to see a figure emerging from the shadows, a dark silhouette, twisted and towering. It raised a hand, and a wave of energy blasted through the room. I stumbled backward, crashing into the boxes. A piercing light filled my vision, and I realized with a jolt that the boy was gone. Whatever I had unleashed was not finished with me. Panic surged as I turned to flee, but now I had no idea where to go. Outside or deeper into the house? Each decision felt like a choice between life and death. One thing was clear: I needed to escape this nightmare, but every moment felt like time was running out. What was coming for me? I took a breath, then dashed into the unknown darkness. I bolted down the narrow staircase leading to the attic as the chaos erupted behind me. My mind was clouded with panic. I could feel the darkness pulsating, almost alive, ready to swallow everything in its wake. The air felt thick, a heavy shroud that clung to my skin and slowed my every movement. I burst through the attic door into the light, but it flickered oddly, teasing me like a mirage. Whatever I had unleashed was getting stronger. I had to get to a window to escape this place that threatened to trap me in its web forever. I glanced back, half expecting to see the dark figure creeping closer, eager to claim me as its own. "Please, let there be a way out," I muttered as I scanned the room. I spotted a gaping window in the far corner that looked like a potential escape route. I sprinted toward it, ignoring the creaks of old wood beneath my feet, my breath hitching in my throat. Suddenly, a gust of wind blasted through the attic, extinguishing the flickering light. I stumbled as shadows curled around me, trying to pull me into their embrace. My heart raced as whispers surged in strength, thousands of voices in unison, a maddening symphony chanting my name. "Leave! Leave!" they cried, desperation mingled with anger. I made it to the window and yanked it open. The late afternoon light poured into the room, illuminating the dust motes swirling. Through the window, I could see the forest beyond, its trees moving with an unsettling grace, as if welcoming me back into their depths. Just as I was about to climb through, I felt a cold hand graze my shoulder. I whipped around, blood running cold. The shadow from before stood there, more defined now. It was the silhouette of the boy, his eyes sunken but burning with urgency. "You need to get out, now!" he gasped, his voice forced but insistent. "But the others," I started to argue, desperately wanting to know if the boy was safe. His face twisted with fear as he glanced back toward the doorway. "They will take you if you stay. It's too late for me." His eyes locked onto mine, pleading, "You must go before it's too late." Then, as if in response to our conversation, the shadows shifted violently, swirling towards us. I could barely comprehend what was happening. It was as if the very walls were alive, enraged by my presence. A heavy presence loomed behind me, and I knew it wouldn't wait much longer. Instinct took over. I hurled myself through the window, cutting my arms on the sharp edges as I squeezed my way out. The ground below was rough and unforgiving, but I quickly rolled to my feet and took off down the overgrown path toward the tree line. The whispers faded a little, but I could still feel the weight of their yearning behind me. I didn't dare look back, didn't dare allow myself to think. I could see the shadows stretching and twisting behind me as the forest seemed to reach out, pulling me in, urging me deeper. I ran, branches scratching my skin, falling leaves whispering warnings in my ears. My legs burned, but I pressed on, fueled by adrenaline. I stumbled upon a clearing, the air thick with silence. The trees circled the space, their limbs twisting like fingers. "Is this it?" I panted, realizing I had lost track of my own thoughts. The boy had vanished, but his warning lingered in my mind, anchoring me as I tried to regain my breath. I had escaped, but the ominous presence still loomed on the periphery of my senses. Then, in the silence, I heard it, a faint cry carried by the wind. "Help us!" The voices were weaker, but still echoed, wrapping around me like a memory desperately trying to resurface. I realized with dread that they came from deeper within Elder's Hollow, where the shadows still loomed. I could have chosen to flee, to abandon the cries and rush toward freedom. Yet something pulled at me, an uncertainty, a connection to what lay lingering in that cursed town. I took a step back toward the forest.
and with it, the nagging feeling that perhaps there was a part of me that would always remain with Elder's Hollow, a part that would never find peace. I knew I had escaped the immediate threat, at least for now, but questions lingered in the air. What happened to the boy? What truth lay hidden beneath the surface of Elder's Hollow? And above all, was I truly free, or had I just walked into a darker chapter? As I turned back, looking at the tree lines that glimmered with twilight secrets, I felt a chill race down my spine. Elder's Hollow would not let me go so easily.
And maybe, just maybe, I would have to go back.